held by Epstein at JP Morgan, which amounts to hundreds of millions of dollars in assets with the bank. We also know of at least $9 million in suspicious transactions and withdrawals, including $4 million specifically going to women and girls, including over 20 identified sex trafficking victims. Epstein routinely withdrew $40,000 to $80,000 in cash, multiple times per month, totaling over $750,000 annually by 2006. Global management, just to name a few. He would do more than that, though. On November 1st, 2009, as Jeffrey Epstein was serving his sweetheart prison sentence for soliciting prostitution from a minor, Jess Staley was relaxing in the hot tub on Epstein's island without Epstein, and he emailed Epstein to say, quote, "So when all hell breaks loose and the world is crumbling, I will come here and be at peace. Presently, I'm in the hot tub with a glass of white wine. This is an amazing place, truly amazing. Next time, we're here together. I owe you much, and I deeply appreciate our friendship. I have few so profound." One thing that Jess Staley owed Jeffrey Epstein was the time that he got to spend with Snow White. When Staley emailed Epstein to say, quote, "That was fun. Say hi to Snow White," Epstein replied, "What character would you like next?" And Staley said, "Beauty and the Beast." In case you had any doubts about what they were talking about, Jeffrey Epstein sent Staley catalogs of photos of young girls posing in seductive positions on numerous occasions. Staley was the CEO of JP Morgan Asset Management, which was responsible for maintaining accounts for wealthy private clients like Epstein and all of his friends. In total, we know of 55 accounts held by Epstein at JP Morgan, which amounts to hundreds of millions of dollars in assets with the bank. We also know of at least $9 million in suspicious transactions and withdrawals, including $4 million specifically going to women and girls, including over 20 identified sex trafficking victims. Epstein routinely withdrew $40,000 to $80,000 in cash, multiple times per month, totaling over $750,000 annually by 2006. These are all the types of things that banks monitor and report to regulators as suspicious activity indicative of criminal money movements. But in this case, none of it was reported. For reasons that I assume are obvious. You see, many people don't realize just how intimately involved in Epstein's operation JP Morgan was, not to mention how intimately involved in JP Morgan's operations Jeffrey Epstein was. From evidence that Epstein played a role in precipitating the 2008 financial collapse, which saw JP Morgan swallow Epstein's old firm, Bear Stearns, all the way to Epstein's long list of billionaire clientele that he referred to JP Morgan, the two were integral to one another's success. An operation as large as Epstein isn't like a small business where you just have a bank account to put your money in. An operation this big makes a partner of the bank. The banking required for multi-million-dollar trafficking operations and financial political deal-making of the variety that we are talking about is a whole different animal. When the CEO of an entire division of your bank is sitting in Jeffrey Epstein's hot tub, pontificating about how much he owes Epstein for their friendship and how much he misses the time he spent with Snow White, that's not a one-way relationship. That's a partnership. And it's a partnership that related on Jess Staley's extensive relationship with Epstein. There's really no reporting or investigation done into Sandy Warner, who presumably set this whole train in motion in the first place. Sandy Warner is a bit of a loose thread in this whole investigation that we all might want to look a little more closely at, but has so far really just avoided scrutiny. Because if Epstein became a client of JP Morgan in 1998, what was he doing in the 2 years between then and the year 2000 when Warner allegedly told Staley that he was one of the most connected guys in New York? But there's actually a fair bit of pretty surprising evidence that there might be some truth to it. And it's a story worth telling, not just because it's crazy and it sheds light on the financial crisis, but also because it slides us right into the middle of Epstein's banking networks. Because not nearly enough people know just how complicit the biggest banks in America were with Epstein's operation. A lot of people don't realize that the head of all of JP Morgan's private client division once emailed Jeffrey Epstein from the hot tub on the island while Jeffrey was still serving house arrest in Florida. And he wrote them this whole email about how good of friends they are and how much he loves Jeff's island and how profound their friendship is. And that's barely even scratching the surface. So today, we're going to in connection to entities associated with Epstein as opposed to personal accounts, like with his name on it. As in, we can cover our tracks by not putting his name on any of the accounts, and it'll just be all groovy, bro. Deutsche Bank eagerly moved ahead with welcoming Jeffrey Epstein into the fold and proceeded to set up an elaborate financial infrastructure for Epstein that included more than 40 accounts across multiple entities. They immediately classified him as high risk and honorary PEP, meaning politically exposed person, which afforded him extra privileges, but they decided to forego the extra scrutiny that ought to go along with the classifications. But it gets even better. Epstein's attorney made 97 cash withdrawals totaling over $800,000 between 2013 and 2017, and each one was for exactly $7,500, which just so happened to be the limit for third-party withdrawals before triggering reporting requirements. Court documents reveal that the attorney actually asked the bank staff on 2 separate occasions how to withdraw cash without creating some sort of alert. That's a crime. It's called structuring, as in you are structuring your withdrawals to specifically avoid regulatory scrutiny. It's not good. The bank is supposed to report when someone does that. When the bank did finally have a review of Epstein's account in 2015 due to increased media attention on the pedophile, rather than carry out a standard review with the Reputational Risk Committee as is typical, executives Charles Packard and Paul Morris, the 2 men who had played central roles in approving Epstein as a client in the first place, they visited his mansion for a private meeting that was not documented or recorded. Instead, I wonder if there was any Disney princesses at their little meeting. Because who knows what happened at the meeting? But whatever it was, it satisfied Charlie and Paul that Epstein was an A-OK guy, and the bank was all good continuing to do business with him. Deutsche Bank wound up flagging approximately $400 million in suspicious transactions, but did nothing about it and continued processing them. Payments to victims, to co-conspirators, to lawyers, and to Lord knows who else. Even when Deutsche finally terminated the relationship with Epstein in 2018, Epstein's relationship manager wrote glowing reference letters to help him find another bank and claimed to be unaware of any problems. The most enlightening aspect of the case remains how routine it all appears in the documents. Epstein wasn't hidden or handled through back channels. He was a mainstream private wealth client whose criminal history was openly discussed in bank memos. His suspicious transactions weren't subtle. They involved structured cash withdrawals, payments to co-conspirators, and millions in legal settlements. The red flags were not missed. They were noted, escalated, and then dismissed because Epstein generated tons of revenue and had very powerful connections. And that is almost the end of the story of mainstream mega banks conspiring with Epstein and aiding him in setting up and running one of the most prolific trafficking rings known in modern history. But there's one